Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Rooted in Ag podcast. I'm Matthew. I'm here with Madison. How are you doing today, Madison?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The busy season of FFA, I feel like, is upon us now. What's going on with your chapter?
We are just preparing for banquet and to get ready for our greenhouse grand opening. It's going to be huge for our chapter. We're inviting all of the big people, so we're really just brainstorming ideas for that right now.
That's awesome. We just got off of FFA week, so we're still running with our heads cut off and stuff, but, you know, getting ready for competition season for sure. So you want to go ahead and ask our question for the day?
Yeah, so would you rather, or I guess would you say, which do you enjoy most, state convention or national convention?
I mean, I can say national convention because we get to see our guests at national convention. But if I'm being honest, I'll say state convention just because I feel like I know everybody at state convention. And I don't know. I just like being able to talk to people and catch up. And national convention, I feel like I'm like drowning in blue jackets.
Yeah, I agree. I think state convention is definitely my favorite because being in the atmosphere of Lexington, let alone, is just such a great feeling. But knowing all of the FFA members that you're surrounded with and usually getting to compete at state convention is just so much fun. And state convention, like, nobody does it better than Kentucky. And I just love how it goes to state convention for sure.
I'm sure our guest has her own opinion on national or state convention, as well as my mom, because they're vendors. That's a hint, I guess, for who this is today. We have the owner, operator, CEO, I'm guessing, doer of everything, Ms. Kodye Martinez of Wandering Maverick. How are you, Kodye?
I am good. How are you guys today?
Great. We got through the technological difficulty, so we're ready to go.
Barely. So I guess I'll go ahead and start, Kodye. I just feel like I have so much I want to know about, your background and your wonderful business. As a small business owner myself in a small community, to see that you've started in your college dorm and have grown so largely and get to attend all of these events and make so many women feel so beautiful. Let's go all the way back to your high school. Did you have an agriculture background in high school? Did you grow up on a farm? Things like that?
Yes. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for having me today. And I am happy we got through those technology issues. So I think we figured it out, fifth generation agriculturalist. I think a third generation FFA member. So I grew up on a large commercial cow-calf operation in South Texas. I showed steers. I livestock judged. I had a few heifers and a few sheep along the way. I was active in FFA and 4-H, but one little fun fact is I actually only had 7 active members in my FFA chapter growing up, and I was more active in 4-H and served as the Texas 4-H president my senior year.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Mics are messing up again. 7 members is crazy. That is barely an officer team, so kudos to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll turn it over to Matthew. I'm sure he has something to say about that.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. 7 members, man. I guess it wasn't too hard to become an officer in that chapter.
No, not at all.
But no, this isn't a FFA only podcast. So tell us about your 4-H experience growing up.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I was, I guess my senior year of high school, I was our county, our district, and our state president. We just had to be very active in 4-H because of such a small FFA chapter. And I say a small FFA chapter. Middle of my junior year, I actually moved to the neighboring town where I reside now. I drove 45 minutes to school one day, and that chapter actually had about 200 active members. So I went from teeny tiny to large, but within that switch of the schools, I switched our FFA districts, etc. So it was kind of a whole new world of people that I was able to be exposed to and open up in my networking circle. But we were very active in 4-H. My mom was a trailblazer for us to be able to get us into different leadership events, livestock judging contests, and then, of course, the leadership positions throughout the county, district, and state level.
That's awesome. I did a little stalking of the Instagram before we recorded, and I saw that you just got licensing for 4-H. So tell us about that
Yes.
and that whole process, because I've heard from my mom about FFA licensing. So, tell us about both being official licensings for the two biggest youth agriculture organizations in the world.
Yes, and so it has been a process. Our 4-H licensing took right at 3 years to obtain. It's just one of those things of I don't feel comfortable selling other people's things because it's illegal without having the proper licensing and all of that stuff. But in terms of FFA licensing, I joined FFA about 2.5 years ago as a licensed vendor. Since then, they've kind of switched over things. They have a new company running that. But I feel like from a business standpoint, being able to be an officially licensed vendor of the two largest youth agriculture programs is something so humbling, and we're just very blessed and grateful to be able to do that. And it's so much more than just making sales. It is about like bringing people together, advocating for these youth programs, and really just kind of giving back to those organizations that I can credit so much to make me into the person I am today.
I love that. So I answered this question on your scholarship, so I'm going to ask it to you. And you sort of answered a little bit, but what does being a woman in agriculture mean to you? Because in a field that is historically so male dominated, women have had to make their way and so on and so forth. So just tell me what it means to you and what you've done for the industry so far.
Being a woman in agriculture is so empowering, and that really is one of our core values here at Wandering Maverick. And I would say we just hit 7 years, so it's probably about 5 years ago. Actually, it is coming up on 5 years ago. And so let me just kind of give you the background of how we had Women in Ag Scholarship Program, how our mission became Women in Agriculture, etc. 2020, I was at Texas A&M University. I was on the livestock judging team and the poultry judging team. I was a poultry science major, even though I'd touched chickens like 5 times in my life before that. And I was told by everyone I'd had Wandering Maverick. That January, I had 5 orders. I wasn't focusing on it. I was focusing on the judging teams that I was on, as well as, like everyone said, finding a quote unquote big girl job, a real job, anything like that. And I was a junior in college. So that summer, everybody does internships. And so that's what everyone told me. And it's just one of those things where I feel like pre-COVID, you had to follow the path of just what everyone expected of you. And obviously, we know what happened in 2020 COVID. I still ended up taking a marketing internship with a large pharmaceutical company. It ended up being virtual. But at the end of our internship program, we did mock interviews. And this was just mainly for them to help us going into our senior year of college to be able to interview for job positions. And during that mock interview, I had a lady, she was 28 at the time. She was head of an entire cattle region at this pharmaceutical company. And at the end of our interview, she opened the floor and said, "Well, do you have any questions for me?" And I turned back and said, "I know this question does not pertain to the job that I'm interviewing for today necessarily, but as a young woman in agriculture, what are the challenges you face and how do you overcome them?" And really, I think this is such a pivotal point of me asking that question and how everything led up to it, because that's the pivotal point where I decided her answer. Let me start with her answer first. So her answer was that being a young woman in agriculture, even though she's the head of this cattle region, etc., she still walks into board meetings and they think that she is the intern just because she's a young female in agriculture. And so that answer is just something that was really pivotal in my journey. That's when I decided, you know what, like I feel like I have just something in me that says, try Wandering Maverick full time. You're going into senior year. You have a degree in poultry science, which is 100% job placement. So if worse comes worse, you just go back to plan A. And so that's when I decided that I really wanted to make a shirt that said support women in ag. And that's literally all it said. And then that's when I realized, once I posted that, the feedback that kind of came back from that. And now we've kind of talked about being a woman in agriculture. There's so many different ways. Am I on the ranch anymore? No. Do I show livestock anymore? No. Am I judging livestock? No. I'm still a woman in ag, even though I'm printing t-shirts. I know people who are women in ag who are stay-at-home farm moms, because if they're not staying at home with the kids, their farmer cannot do those things. Or women in agriculture in policy, or in the classroom, the feed store. There are so many different ways, and you don't necessarily have to be out there on the tractor unloading feed, doing things with cattle, all of those things. And I think that has really helped women in ag find a place, knowing that there's so many different hats that women can wear.
I really like that, because I think oftentimes not only women but people in the agriculture industry altogether truly forget that the ag industry is, it's really important to have our farmers, but it's more than just farmers. You know, you need everyone to make the industry go around. And I hope that our listeners got from that if you have a dream or a feeling, to go chase it, and that so many things are possible. And the future holds so many good unknowns, and that was proven through your story, and I just love that so much.
Absolutely. And I really believe that God puts things on your heart for a reason, and the answer is always no unless you try.
I love it. I love how I agree with you. Agriculture is all encompassing. It takes all of us. You know, it's not just the farmer or stuff like that. But I do have a bone to pick with you. I feel like you need a ally of women in agriculture scholarship too. You know.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
We are actually no, but it's a good point, because we just recently rebranded, and I actually haven't spoke with anyone really about this, but we just rebranded because we are wanting to kind of shift our values into supporting youth in agriculture. Supporting agriculture education is something really big for us too. So we feel like we have really helped the women in ag conversations out there, and really I feel like we're not, and when I say we're, I'm not talking about me and Wandering Maverick personally, but I feel like women in agriculture as a whole are starting to become more 50-50. I'm starting to see on how, honestly, may I say it, dare I say it, that women in ag might be the majority one day. And so we are actually moving towards something that is going to be youth in agriculture related, to kind of hit both of our 4-H and FFA females and males, and then our agriculture education.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that if you're not already the majority, you're well on your way there. My FFA officer team last year, we have 9 officers. I was the only male. And then this year, we have 9 officers. I'm one of 2 males. And then our viewers won't be able to see this, but our group chat name for our FFA officer team is Women in Ag. But no, I love how you're focusing on the youth too, because as we all know, farmers are getting older, and supporting agriculture education is so important. And we see here in Kentucky, where me and Madison are, legislation really starting to be pushed for elementary and middle school ag education, and so we're really excited where that could take agriculture education.
Absolutely. I love, because we traveled to a couple different state conventions, seeing how each state does it differently, because Florida is very heavy middle school ag programs. Texas is, we're getting there. 8th grade, they're really kind of starting to do that. So I think that's amazing. Getting the youth, just like, the more they're around it, the more they notice, the more they're talked to about it, the more they're going to encompass and embrace it when they're older.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it was so important to have you on the podcast to really show our listeners that there's still people out there that believe in the future of agriculture and the next generation. And there's people out there that are constantly trying to give back to the community that is given back to them so that our industry continue to go around. So since we're on the state and national convention topic, I, for some reason, just always assume that you're from Kentucky because you're always at Kentucky State Convention. So excuse me for saying that Kentucky State Convention was the best. I'm sure Texas is pretty great too. So go ahead and talk about your journey going to state convention and national convention, what that is like for you, because I know that has to be so stressful to get so many shirts and items prepped, but also one of the best journeys ever.
Absolutely. So, yes, I am based in very South Texas, and so we travel a lot. I actually grew up, I went to my first state convention when it was the summer after my 7th grade. So I was able to go to state conventions as a person, and dare I say, I was the girl who loved to hit up the shop. So, really, if I could have forecasted things, I was the girl who loved to shop. And then I also went to national convention when I was in college. So I want to say the way I got back into taking Wandering Maverick to conventions is in 2019. I actually attended Texas FFA convention with a 10 by 20 booth, the very back corner of the convention hall, super tiny. It was me and my little sister who, I guess she was like 12 or 13 at the time. And it's actually really special because this July, she is a Texas FFA state officer. So we are really looking forward to this summer seeing my sister kind of come full circle of her and I working a booth at the back of the convention center to her being up on the big stage. The first time we took a Wandering Maverick booth to National Convention was 2021. We were in a different spot than we are now. We now have a booth 3 times the size, but it's just something that was, when I look back, such a wild learning experience because, again, I didn't know what to expect. And looking back, I took 4 people total to work it. Me, my fiance at the time, my current husband, and then my 2 cousins. So it's just us 4. And when I tell you we had a line, there's no telling what got shoplifted. There's no telling what we missed. We ran out of inventory, so we were taking orders. I just really had no idea what to expect on that type of level of students and just the number and the quantity and everything like that. It took us 2 full days to set up. So it was a very large learning experience. Now, over the last few years, I have learned and our business has grown. We went from 1 singular printer to 2 direct to garment printers, and now we run a 12 station 8 color automatic screen printer. And so we are actually been doing that this morning. We have all of our conventions lined up, planned, and we are kind of just taking it. We have it broken down into 3 trips. So we have trip 1 that has our first few state conventions, trip 2, trip 3, and then we have national convention. So we have already started printing shirts for National Convention 2025. And it's just one of those things of the past few years, specifically like last year, we didn't get our screen printer up and running until the end of June, beginning of July. So we really had to cram and print things along with learning a new machine, etc., before National Convention. And so it is a process. We have a wonderful team. We have some local high school girls who are in the program come and fold stuff for us. And so it's a process, but we love going to the FFA conventions because being able to meet with people and connect and just build that community is something that is by far my favorite part of WMB.
Well, thank you for taking time out of the busy printing season to be on the podcast then. I had no idea you were in this rush already. That's crazy. You're already getting ready for November and March. I guess that's just how much it takes because y'all have such a big booth, and everybody that's ever been to National Convention has definitely been to your booth. So
we are trying this year to work smarter, not harder, even though it's still hard work. And kind of in the screen printing world, you have to burn each screen for each color and set it up. And so we just learned and this is the first year. I'll be the first to admit I don't do things perfectly. This could bite me in the butt. So if you ask me a few months from now, this could be a different conversation. But we've just learned that the setup process and the mixing the inks and all of that just is so time consuming. Might as well just kind of build that all into one cost, and hold the inventory for a few months.
Well, I guess we'll have to do a follow-up episode after the convention season then. No, I'm just kidding. One of the things that never made sense to me is like you can go and ask vendors, and like shoplifting's a pretty big problem at National Convention, and it really never made sense to me because you're wearing your full name on your front, and then you're wearing the state and what school someone could find you at on your back. So I've never really got the shoplifting thing at National Convention. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And now when I catch people shoplifting, I literally go up and take a picture of their jacket, the front and back, and then I confront them because, and it's crazy. The
That's
stories
hilarious.
I have with shoplifting is mind blowing.
Maybe to wrap the episode up, you can give us one decent one.
For sure.
I just want to exaggerate on like how much of a process the t-shirt business is. Like, I applaud you for that because I do DTF, so direct to film, but I've worked with someone that did screen print, and screen print, it's effective, but it takes forever. And you know, I hear people all the time be like, oh, you don't have a real job, or you just make shirts, or that's such an easy job. And it's not. Like, you have to be your social media, and you have to do your ordering and your pressing and all of those things. So if you haven't been to state or national convention, you have no idea how large of a booth we're talking. I mean, this booth is large, guys, and there is shirts and crew necks and long sleeves and stickers. I'm gonna stop because I'm about to get interrupted.
You're fine.
DLC, please report to the gym.
And there's car fresheners and just all sorts of things. So I mean, you do amazing at keeping it organized and keeping, like, I always see your Instagram posts about keeping a good spirit. And then back to the shoplifting thing, I remember seeing you post, maybe it was 2 years ago, about how you will confront shoplifters and that it happens. And I was like, oh, bless your heart. Because, I mean, I'm sure it would be easy when you get that big crowd for someone to just stuff and run. And that's terrible. So I hope that, you know, you don't catch much of that, or that just does not happen this year at Nationals.
Absolutely. And so props to you for having a small business and doing the DTF and everything, because it is such a process. And a lot of people, they are just like, well, it's just a t-shirt. Like, and I'm like, if you knew the ink costs, the material costs, what the machine costs, insurance, all of that, it's so much more, to be able to provide those high quality items, and to do things legally, like pay your taxes and pay your insurance and be covered and all of that. And so it is, definitely an adventure.
So I have a very, very blunt question that it's just, where'd you get the name Wandering Maverick from? Where'd that come from?
So I actually started in my college bedroom, and I got a DBA that was 5 in ranch and designs. And so when I started with my $200 in Cricut as an 18-year-old in my college bedroom, I basically went to Google and was like, stuff. Actually, I went to my closet and I pulled out every graphic t-shirt that I owned. And I was like, okay, this one's Bella Canvas, this one's Bella Canvas, this one's Comfort Color, this one's Next Level, this one is Gilded. So then I went to Google and I typed in, how do you get a Bella Canvas t-shirt wholesale? Well, then I got directed to a few sites that said I need a tax ID. So I opened another tab in Google and said, how do you get a tax ID in Texas? And then it said that I need a DBA. And I was like, how do you get a DBA in Texas? What is a DBA? I didn't even know what a DBA was. And so I originally was 5 in ranch and designs. And that is because when I started with my Cricut, it wasn't just t-shirts. It was not ag related. And this is my biggest piece of advice to anyone, is just start something. If you want to be a photographer, go outside and take a picture. You don't need a fancy camera. Take it with your phone. If you want to start raising livestock, okay, well, figure out a way to do it. If that's going and scrambling and getting a certificate to get a heifer, and then it's just one of those things of small, and you never really know where it's going to be. But if you never start, you'll never find out. And so I did not start perfect whatsoever. I had a different name. So about 7 months in, I decided 5 in Ranch and Designs is something I didn't want to be known as. That was a very long name that didn't really mean much, etc. But it's funny because I took an online course that summer, and it's from another boutique owner, and we were talking about my name, and she was like, well, when people see 5 in Ranch and Designs, they're going to just think you have ranch stuff and ag stuff and this and that. And at that point, that was not what I wanted. I just wanted to kind of be a catch-all. And then it wasn't until 2020, so really a year and a half in, 2 years in, 2.5 years, something like that, that I branded to Wandering Maverick. And so the story behind that is I always knew I wanted to travel. I love to travel, if that was traveling for work, traveling for personal, etc. So that's where the wandering comes in from. And then Maverick, disclaimer, I never saw Top Gun until like 2 years ago, so I did not know that Maverick was such a popular name. But I got Maverick because in like ranching world, that's like an unbranded bull or like a bull you can't catch, etc. So they call him a Maverick. And so I was like, oh, that could be my little tie to agriculture. And so that's how I came up with Wandering Maverick.
That's awesome. I had no idea what it could have been related to, so that's really cool. And I like how you had to do that 180, switching your name and stuff. Luckily, we haven't had to do that with the podcast yet, but who knows? No, I'm just kidding. Tell us a little bit. We'll wrap up soon, I promise. I know you need to get back to printing.
You're good.
But tell us a little bit about your advocacy on social media and how that came about, because I mean, I feel like I could open up my Instagram right now and I could see someone reposting one of your shirts holding the sign that would say something related to agriculture, about supporting agriculture.
Absolutely. And this is kind of something we have been talking about. Like, do we want to continue doing the letterboards? We've actually been playing around with different ways to advocate on social media. But thank you for saying that, because the letterboards kind of hold a near and dear piece of our heart. And so I have a few tips in terms of advocating for social media. And the biggest one that I guess the biggest mission or eye opener, I would say, is that if I share something, say I have 100 followers, well, then one of my followers shares something. Well, they have 100 followers. Well, then one of their followers. And even though it might just be 5 people who repost it, 500 people could see it. And that is what I think is the biggest thing when it comes to social media is, yes, there's negativity and down things, but social media, there is so much good and so much potential for it. And so I always just like to say, keep things short and sweet and simple. So we just try to really keep our advocacy stuff short, because honestly, I could spend hours and pour my heart and soul into a 5-paragraph caption that told you everything you need to know. Nobody's really going to read it. And so that's why we really try to keep things short, try to keep it simple, because if I go in there and start saying all of these words that are way over my head personally, nobody else is going to even realize them either. And so it's just one of those things that we're trying to keep it short and simple. We're also trying to stay out of gray areas. So we are just wanting to be factual, something just kind of short, maybe something that can spark a conversation, which is something that our t-shirts we really love, because people will be like, oh, I went to my local gas station, I was in the DFW airport, somebody asked me about my shirt, like kind of an elevator conversation. And that is just something that I think advocacy on social media is good as well. I always kind of get a second follow-up question to when we advocate on social media of, what do you do with people who don't agree? I have to say, we have been blessed with the algorithm on how mostly we do not get a lot of feedback and like hate arguments, etc., but they do still come. And I have stories of like a Women in Ag post. get comments from men all the time. Like one was like, go make us a sandwich. And then recently we, for National FFA Week, actually posted a letterboard that said support women in FFA. And we got the comments, let me tell you. Facebook did not like our comments. It had like 3,000 shares, tons of likes, all of this and great engagement. But you could tell there were people who do not follow Wandering Maverick, do not understand the mission, and we just got tore apart in our own comments about how we don't support agriculture, we don't support men, like why are we trying to divide the world and promote women? And it was just so crazy. And so that is one thing that you win some, you lose some, but there was lots of other people who stood up for us in those comments and were like, if you knew anything about this business, you know that like Women in Ag, it's ran by a woman in ag, and that has been one of their core missions and values. And then we had all of these shares and these other people commenting like, hey, at so-and-so, you inspire me as a woman in FFA, or all of these different things. And so really the good really does outweigh the bad, but there are always different things that come our way with it. And sometimes I let it kind of get in my head and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't post something like support women in FFA on a letterboard. But then I realize if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And I will go to my grave supporting women in agriculture and being a voice in agriculture, because you can do that without taking away from the men and the males and just youth in general in agriculture. And so I know that was a long-winded question to your advocacy. I just kind of wanted to share different sides of it, but just basically keep it short, keep it simple, stay out of the gray area, and it's a lot easier than what you think. And one set of eyes could turn into 500 very easily, and your voice has a place and an impact in this world.
Sorry. I am speechless. I'm blown away. I really hope that the listeners tuned into every word you said, because the part about 500 eyes or 500 viewers, or 5 eyes or viewers could turn into 500 is crazy, because it's something that you don't think about. You're like, well, this post, only 5 people shared it. No one cares. No one liked it. But you truly don't see just how many different eyes seen it. And I also want to tell you to not, it's so hard. It's easier said than done. But don't let those people or those haters get to your head, because from people that do support you and do love the mission you're trying to grow, it's an amazing organization. It's an amazing way to advocate for women. And you're not only a big part of it is advocating for women in ag, yes. But also, there's always things about pork and about beef and about all kinds of different aspects of the industry. And when people don't like something or are unsatisfied with themselves, the easiest way is to attack somebody else that is successful, and they see that you are successful and they're jealous of that. So I applaud you for all you do, and I really hope the listeners have a better understanding of just how much work you've had to put into this industry.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just thank you for also making yourself available to FFA and 4-H members and youth in agriculture, and wanting to share your story. And like what Madison said, not everything you share is just about women in ag. It's also just raising ag in general. I've reposted plenty of Wandering Maverick stuff, actually.
I love that. Go Matthew.
Yes. But just thank you for, just making yourself available. That's, it's just crazy how many people are willing to get on a computer with us, especially after technical difficulties, and want to talk to youth agriculturalist.
No, I commend both of you for what you are doing. Y'all are going to make such an impact. I love this. Please tag me in your social media posts. We would love to get y'all's podcast out to our Wandering Maverick followers. Turn those 5 into 500 or whatever it shall be. So I applaud you guys. Thank you guys for having me on. It has been a joy. It's been a treat. Y'all are amazing. I know that y'all are both going to be trailblazing in agriculture as advocates, as agriculturalists, and in your future, especially for being so young. So I applaud you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, Madison, do you have any last minute questions?
I don't think so. Just listeners, remember that we're on that stretch to achieve our goal of at least 10 guests before the summer starts, and we're bringing you the best of the best with each episode, so tune in.
Yep, and Cody, we're not going to make you tell us a shoplifting story, but to our listeners, if you have another guest or any other guests that we haven't had on that you want to see on, let us know. Shoot us a DM or anything like that. Me and Madison were spitballing guest ideas, and I think a Wandering Maverick post actually came up on my Instagram feed. I was like, we need to get Wandering Maverick. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
And so we had a connection. Shout out to my mom, and we were just really excited to get her on. If you have anybody else, listeners, that you want us to get on, or maybe get on, we've had about 15 guests now, so if you want to re-follow up with somebody, let us know and we'll do it. That being said, Cody, thank you again so much for your time. Madison, I'll see you in the next episode.
Yes, see ya.
We're having an all-night revival. Some will call the women and some will steal the Bible. For the sake